Tim, welcome to the Midlife Mavericks Podcast.
Stretch, great to be here. Looking forward to our time together.
Me too, mate. I'm sorry I missed you in Ceduna earlier this year, but I'm looking forward to connecting face-to-face when the opportunity comes about. And we're going to dive deep and talk all about breathwork today. But before we do, a couple of questions that I always ask the guests at the start of the show is, if you and I were to be jumping on an airplane, where would that airplane be going? Do you have a favorite holiday destination or a bucket list item that you want to tick off?
Well, when you say bucket list, that's different to where I'd like to go, because I'd like to go back to Ceduna on the West Coast. I freaking love that place. But if I was to tick a bucket list off, I mean, I have traveled a little bit with my military career. If I was to, like Machu Picchu, you know what I mean? Getting up into to the areas there and doing some breath work in that space, that would be super cool, I think. And I hadn't even thought of that until you asked that question. So good question.
Yeah, awesome, mate. I've actually never been to Machu Picchu either, and it's been on the bucket list item to tick off, mate. So I can definitely resonate with that. And to do an experience like breathwork in a place like that would be pretty cool as well. So maybe we can set that up.
Well, look, and there's plenty of places you can do breath work in very powerful, energetic locations if you believe in the unseen power of the land. I just did a weekend, and there was a guy who had an offer, if you wanted to buy in, to do breath work in different places of Egypt, because apparently the people in Egypt in ancient times knew how to create energetic effects through the land, through the structures. And so he's got this idea to go over there and do breath work in that space. And that's cool. But I also think in Australia, we have the same energetic spaces. And in my experience, it's usually where a lot of the Dreamtime stories start and finish, where there's these sort of convergent lines, without sort of getting too woo-woo on you. But I have noticed going to certain areas and really breathing in the air has this effect on you that you can't quite articulate, but you feel bloody powerful afterwards. And I was going to ask Stretch, what's the language rating on this?
Mate, you're welcome to say whatever you like.
Okay, great. No worries. Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
It's awesome that you mentioned that, because I've actually got quite an interesting story about breathwork myself, which I'll share in a minute. But just to reflect on what you said, or I'm curious, like, what is a place where you've done breathwork where it's just been, a different experience for you?
Sure. And I'll say this every single day. 100% of my days I'm doing breath work to either a sunrise or sunset, and 90% of my days I'm doing breath work to sunrise and sunset. Okay, so those, you don't necessarily need a location. When the light first comes up over the horizon, that frequency goes through your eyeballs and sets up all your internal clocks. We've got all these internal clocks that need to be synchronized. It also turns off the melatonin in your head and raises up the energy levels for you to get through the day. So people always ask me, what's the best tip for sleep? And I'm like, well, if you can get up and get that first ray of light through your eyeballs, there is a whole cacophony of chemicals that get produced naturally, one of which is our skin produces a natural sunscreen when we get exposed to the first part of the day. But at nighttime, because all your internal clocks are in sync, you can sleep as a unit, because a lot of people try to go to sleep, their body's tired, but part of them still not tired. And so I don't want to sort of give a location and not make it accessible, because I've got what works for me. And where I am in Brisbane, the only way I can see the sunrise properly is to get up on my roof. So, guess where I was a couple of hours ago, on my roof. I try to get as much skin as possible in the sun. So my mitochondrial my energy factories pick up on those frequencies. I totally geek out on the science of what power is available through nature and our own bodies. And unfortunately, Stretch, our ignorance of how awesome our body is made gets exploited. Oh, I don't have energy. Oh, I need a coffee or an energy drink or a pill to sleep. And I was one of those guys, 6 years addicted to pills. They call it a zombie veteran. The doctor just threw a bunch of pills at me, and I can't get those 6 years back. But I didn't know breath work was something that could actually literally alkalize your neural pathways. Okay, this is a chemical override. This isn't meditation where thoughts are controlling thoughts, because I've had a goddamn train wreck going on in there. There's no way any thought could control a thought. But breath work, it's like that big switch on the side of the house. Boom, lights out. Boom, and the anti-inflammation and healing effects it has on your body, presence of oxygen, absence of disease. So I'm a guy with chronic back injuries, not a lot of cartilage left in my back after carrying all the heavy shit. So I get super passionate when it comes to people all own bodies, but we don't know how incredibly they were made. And unfortunately, the economy runs on us not knowing how awesome we are.
It's a great insight, mate. I love the way you talk about nature, getting into the morning sun, getting skin exposed, and just really connecting with our bodies, and the breath, what a tool it is to be able to do that. I really want to dive into all of your work, but before we do, I would also like just to rewind and just sort of say, if we're sitting on this plane together, we're heading off to Machu Picchu, and I was to ask you about what you did, like what drives you, what motivates you, what's your purpose along those lines, what would you say that is today?
What really lights me up? People have greatness in them, but often it's like these dormant seeds in the soil, and it's just waiting for the right energy level of that soil for them to sprout. Okay. Flourishing, growing, being fruitful is very natural for people once their energy levels get to the right level. And a lot of people get stuck in the idea of, well, I've got to work harder to be fruitful in my life. And I'm saying it doesn't work like that. You get very limited results, and often you burn out. I was one of those guys, shot at endocrine system, turning on my family, cause of pain for a lot of people around me. And so raising people's energetic space inside of them, and that's as simple as improving sleep. And that's why I'm such a passionate advocate on sleep, because sleep is a soil from which everything grows. But what really lights me up is seeing what grows out of that soil, because you don't know. It is so unseen. And I don't want anyone going to the grave with them not seeing, me not seeing the awesomeness that is actually inside of you. And so that's what truly lights me up. And so I do all this energetic stuff, not just because it feels good, but if you can give people access to that power, then all of a sudden flourishing becomes a very natural thing, a very natural state. A seed cannot not grow and flourish and get really strong in the right soil. Conversely, if you had great seeds, powerful seeds in soil that never got watered, never had any nourishment, they're just going to lay dormant, or if they try and grow, they wither and they think, well, I'll never waste energy on that again.
Powerful, man. I like it. I like the analogy that you use there. And obviously working with people and giving them that gift is something that's obviously very satisfying and rewarding for you. If we were to rewind before Tim knew all about breathwork and before Tim found his awesomeness, what was going on for you in life back then?
Good question. This is not your first rodeo, Stretch. But what I can see now, there's a great saying: the voids we have in our life drive the value. Okay, so because I didn't have a very good sense of self-worth, so growing up in a small country town, Ceduna, in the 70s, I was dyslexic. So, and back then, the technical term for dyslexia was the stupid kid that couldn't sit still because I had ADHD and they didn't know what that was. So and back then you could hit kids, right? So I never felt that I had a sense of value, and I always felt that what I did was wrong. So I was always trying to overcompensate. So people pleasing. And then a funny thing happened one day. I got really angry and I punched some guy, and then everyone started being nice to me. Everyone was sort of kissing my ass because I'm a big, strong guy. And then I just sort of, I went down the way of martial arts, professional fighting. I was trying to fill the void by chasing a particular value. And now, I still love martial arts. I still like being in combat. And I got a 20-year-old son that I'm very proud I can still throw down with. And that was a 25-year project in itself. Before my son was born, there was this thing where I'm like, you know what? Forget the future. Let's think about my past for a second. I'm going to think about my dad. If my dad married a different mum, my life would be very different. And then I started thinking about before my dad met my mum and the decisions and choices he was making, right? And I'm like, well, some of the decisions dad made really worked for me. And some of the decisions dad made really didn't work for me. And then I'm like, oh, crap. At some point in the future, and I didn't have kids, I was just 25 years old, right? I didn't have kids, but I thought in some point in the future, there's going to be a kid that's going to be saying, you know what? I'm really glad dad chose this. And you know what? When dad chose that didn't work for me at all. And then literally these two paths opened up in front of me, Stretch. It was, and it looked like a 95% space and a 5% space. The easy path, the one that you do without thinking, is easy to start with, right? But then the longer you're on it, the harder it gets. Because our comfort zone is never static. It's either shrinking or expanding. There's a very good reason I was in an ice bath an hour ago. Because that's like, really uncomfortable. But then that expands out your comfort zone. As crazy as that is. I'm just kind of lazy. Laying there in water for 3 minutes is a whole lot better than going for a run for 50 minutes and getting the same sort of, right? So conversely, there's the hard path where it's a conscious thought. It's often, and you don't know how hard conscious thinking is because most people are unconscious. So you don't know how strong the current is until you start going against it. So when you consciously live your life, it's not just your own thoughts that you're up against. There's a lot from the outside too. And with the end in mind of, I wanted to have my children having the best possible start in life. And that starts with the decisions I make now. And so my boy's 20 and, I've made a point of each day dividing my day into thirds. 1/3, it's all about me, totally selfish. But then 2/3, it's totally about everything else outside of my skin. And it's easy to lose that ratio when you see others making progress in certain areas, but you don't see how much they're sacrificing, cashing in tomorrow to live today, being there, done that, and there are times to do that. Muscle up, get hard, be a man. But if that's your constant go-to, people start saying things like, oh, you're over the hill at 30. You're over the hill at 40. Oh, you're definitely over the hill at 50. And a funny story, Stretch, when I was the oldest dude in the Special Forces application program, and they said, 30, you're too old, because I was 30, right? You're too old for this. Everyone's, 18, 19, 20. But dyslexia, right? So I see things in patterns, and the pattern I saw was, guess what? This is the first time I'm 30. I've never been 30 before. So shouldn't it be me deciding what I can and can't do, not you? So, fuck you very much. That's where you start. That's, where you stop. This is where I start. And I'm going to be sovereign with my bag of meat and what it can and can't do. And of the 5 to 10,000 people that applied, I got into the 70. And of the 70 that actually went through the course, there was guys younger, fitter, faster, stronger, probably smarter than me. I was in the final 15 that got through. And so what I'm trying to say is, some people say it like this: try and be a good ancestor. So when the generations come forward, they may not have met you, but you're creating good things. Now, I've never met my great-great-great-grandfather, but I'm pretty sure he was an angry dude. There's some, and so when we deal with really stuck energy, let's just call it that, it's not just necessarily our own lives we're healing our ancestors. We're healing the generations after us. And that's why I'm so passionate about giving people the proper energetic state, because if we are going to flourish, if we're going to grow those seeds, often those seeds are encased in pain. So the healing isn't the journey. The healing gets you to the point of bringing your gifts into the world. And so for anyone who wants to bring their gifts into the world, they're the people I'm 300% in the corner of.
I like it. it's legacy, mate. It's creating a legacy and having a purpose that allows you to create that legacy. I like how you zoomed out and think of the big picture, but it's not the picture necessarily of moving forward, but it's also looking back. I think that reflection piece is powerful, isn't it? To be able to sit with that and reflect on, hey, what got us here? What got me here? Maybe won't get me there. So, we've got to reflect on that and see how things can change. You talk about a little bit in there, you growing up as a kid, the relationship with your dad, and that value of you probably all of a sudden being recognized when, you stood up for yourself. And then you followed this sort of drive into martial arts. What do you feel your values were back then when those things were going on?
I'm not awesome enough. I need to be awesome. People at the center of attention seem to be getting all the attention, so maybe I should be there. So I didn't know that I wanted to fight. I knew that people that were fighting would have all the attention. And for some reason, maybe I didn't get enough of that as a kid. That was the void that I was trying to fill. But in turn, that's how I got a lot of value. The discipline of having to, a fighter's lifestyle is bloody hard and very. And back in the 90s, so this was the early days of mixed martial arts. So back in the 90s, it was called no rules fighting. And the rules, there was no rules, but in the change rooms, they say, okay, no digit insertion. You can't gouge, you can't stick it in anywhere, right? Yeah. But what guys figured out was you could grab their skull and drive your chin into their eye socket. That was still legal because it's not a digit, right? So this is the kind of conditions that we were coming through. No clue, but it gave us a chance to, and I believe men do need the chance to be destructive. We need to feel like we're getting destroyed. We want to feel like we can, feel damage and give damage because our bodies are built for it. Our nervous system is built for it. And there's a reason why we have a lot of nerve endings in our hands. When we connect, that creates a electrical charge and it feels good to hit. Okay. So hitting that bag, it creates this neural circuit between your brain and your hand. So this is why I really recommend, if you want to boost your brain, do some boxing. It doesn't have to be with an opposition, but just hitting a bag or doing combinations. We are as men made to hit targets, and it's a very big part of our brain. And when we tap into that ancient knowledge, our whole body responds really, really quickly. Like lifting weights doesn't come close to the amount of good energy and total body hormonal, endocrine, dopamine response to chopping wood. So guess what this crazy guy does? When I hide an axe at the park. This isn't bush, right? I'm not chopping down the local tree. I'll hide an axe in the park and, there's a tree that's fallen down. I'll just hack away. I'll give myself 5 minutes to try and get through. And if I don't get through, then the next day I'll give it another crack. So there's things you can do to tap into your primal nature, and it's largely through the physical. And this is what I tell my son. Like I said, he's 20. He's a brick hit house. And I said, look, a man's happiness, as men, we're supposed to, our purpose in life, I believe, and this is just an offering. You can take with this what you want. But in my observation, as men, masculine men are happy, masculine men are generous. But our generosity and happiness is relative, and this is what no one says, to our power. How powerful we feel is how generous and how happy we are. Conversely, if you want to see a man who's stingy and unhappy, he doesn't feel powerful. And I might actually add one more. The amount of peace you feel is relative to your power. And like I tell my son, that starts with us. That starts underneath our own skin. We give that to ourselves. And when you tap into your unique energy signature, the thing that lights up your physical body, it's surprising how little you need. You don't have to spend hours at the gym, and you don't even have to spend it at the gym. There is a number of different ways. Every man has a unique energy signature. I tend to like breath work because it's a little universal, right? Most people breathe, okay? But this is what modern man isn't getting told, is that we're actually here to be happy and generous, but it comes off the back of being truly powerful. And unfortunately, disempowered men have tried to. So if we aren't powerful, let me just wind this back a bit. When a man is powerful and he's happy and generous, my observation of the feminine is they feel safe. And we're here to let the feminine feel safe. And safety to the feminine is like the soil from which she grows. She can flourish. She doesn't have to worry about looking at the perimeter. She can just do her thing and flourish. Conversely, if a man's not feeling powerful, he will often make people around him feel unsafe. So someone says to me, oh, that guy's a badass, don't mess with him. I'm like, nah, he's a weak ass. He is so weak. He has to take power from others. That's how weak he is.
It's interesting, mate. I like how you're diving into masculinity. I think it's a powerful conversation to have. But I also like that you added peace to what you said there, because I think there are what we perceive maybe as powerful men in our society. But if I look at those powerful men that probably aren't generous, they're probably also not at peace. So for you to add that in there, I think that's an important part, because I think we can feel powerful as men. We can feel in control and we can feel like we have the power, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're showing up in the world as healthy masculinity. But I think the peace element that you spoke about there, if we have peace and we have gratitude, I think that changes the picture. That's my opinion of what you just said.
No, you're right. And a good way to test it in the real world, because, I'm really good at kidding myself. I'm awesome. Just ask me, right? But
Yeah.
if you can honestly look at the people around you and ask, or even ask if you're around someone who's supposedly do you make the people around you feel safe? I can relax and be myself. There's nothing here I have to worry about. This guy's, he's got me. And that's sort of the question. And usually when people feel safe, laughter is a really good, laughter and humor and fun.
Yeah.
So the fun dad jokes, we're there because we're trying to create a safe environment. I feel so safe around here, I can make myself look stupid. That's what I tell my daughter. You make me feel so safe, and then I tell her a bunch of dad jokes. I'll tell you something funny. Literally this morning, I was honored that my daughter called me up and she was fully pissed off at something that had happened, right?
Mm.
And this is off the back of a divorce. So the relationships haven't always been good. And there has been times where I haven't been able to, where my daughter has not been contacting me, right? But I was so honored this morning. She was pissed off that something had happened and she just wanted to talk to somebody. And I'm like, great. Because when the feminine, in my observation, is sort of dumping out this stuff, she's actually saying, look, I want to get close to you, but I want to empty the basket of stuff that I'm carrying so I can be close to you. And dialing back into the bad jokes, I'm like, if you've got lunch free, how about we go to this Chinese place? And the Chinese have, the Peking duck that's hanging in the window. Maybe not at Streaky Bay, but you know the ones I'm talking about?
I know the ones, mate. Don't worry.
Yeah. So the Chinese, they don't eat the backbone and they don't eat the parson's nose or the butt, right?
Yeah.
But that's the best part, right? So I go in there and I'm like, give me some duck butt. I want some duck butt. I want to dominate the duck butt. And so I'm like this to my daughter, and she's just to hear her laugh knows that I've been able to penetrate her negative space. The state she was in, she was basically saying, please break this state that I'm currently in and I don't know how to get out of. So for probably over 10 minutes, I was just telling the stupidest jokes about duck butt. I'm going to make duck butt butter. We're going to make duck butt butter together. It's a catchy phrase, and she was about to go to the gym. And I said, it's good to go to the gym, use this, energy and just know that every single rep that you do, you're going to make that duck butt taste even better. And people are going to be looking at you and you're going to be lifting weights and you're going to be drooling and people don't know why, so that stupid fun is a good sign that people around you feel safe. And it's a good sign that you're a powerful masculine.
Yeah, it's great. I think it's connection, isn't it? It's deep connection. And sometimes to create that deep connection, we have to be vulnerable, or we have to be able to make a fool of ourselves, or, not take life so seriously, so that we can open up the potential for someone to go deeper, to have a laugh, but just to connect in not such a serious way. And it's awesome that, your daughter can ring you when she's feeling that way to have that conversation, and, you can create that space for her. You talked a bit about safety there. I want to get over to the breath work in a minute and what got you to breath work. But one question before we move into that. I'm just curious, like growing up, did you feel safe? And when you're applying to join the military, did you feel safe?
Good question. And, the questions people ask, Stretch, often say a lot about them. So we'll talk offline about that one. But no, here's the thing. Growing up in the 70s in Ceduna, and I was later to find out that statistically it's like one of Australia's most prejudiced towns. A lot of violence, like so much violence to the point where as kids, it was just normal. It was just normal, to see a glassing. It was just normal to see a bashing. It was just, and we kind of treated it like a cartoon. So I didn't feel, but the thing was, interesting thing about Aboriginal culture was they, in my experience, honor the child. They do not let any harm before the child. And so it was strange. I could be in those situations as a little kid, and I just felt that there was this force field around me. And I also figured out pretty early that you don't even have to say please for things because it was just a communal thing. So I'd always, because my dad worked with the Aboriginals, so we'd go to these Aboriginal camps, middle of nowhere, and I learnt pretty early on that I'd find the oldest dude because he was normally the best at making stuff, and I'm like, "What's your name?" Jimmy Holden. What do you make, Jimmy? I make boomerangs. Can you make me a boomerang? All right, and we just walk off into the bush. And he would, show me the tree, show me the bend, show me the cut, and I'd sit with him, and then he'd give it to me. I'd try and throw it and say, right, make me another one. And it was that kind of space that, as much as at school I felt very insecure, felt stupid, felt invisible, it was that Indigenous connection, that invisible space that they occupy, somehow gave me early on kind of wired into my being that unseen space that most people don't occupy. And it's that space where I felt secure and safe. Emotionally was a different story going through high school. I had this, early on, my dad was a minister in the church. I'm like, I want to be a minister in the church. So can you imagine how much fun kids in high school had with that? Oh, you want to be a prayer? And they also figured out that being raised conservative Christian, it was like letter of the law. If someone punches you in the face, you turn the other cheek. Can you imagine how quickly the other kids found out you could punch me in the face and I didn't hit back? And in many ways, I think, the saying, energy doesn't go anywhere. It just transforms. I think all those times that I had to turn the other cheek got kind of paid forward in my fighting career. And I had to sort of get that poison out in a healthy way. So emotionally, very unsafe. Physically safe. Good question.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I like that. Thank you for that answer. And it's interesting to tap into that because I think a lot of men could relate with that. Physically we might feel safe, but emotionally we bury a lot of those emotions, or we don't want to show weakness. We don't want to cry. We don't want to open up and talk about our emotions because it's easier to bury that, to hide that. I think it's a very common thing. And that's just stoic masculinity, or it's been passed down generation to generation. So it's an interesting question to put to you, and I like your answer. Let's talk about breathwork a little bit. When did this begin for you? When did you discover breathwork?
Sure. So I was in the Himalayas meditating, and after my second bowl of celery juice, this light appeared all around me. That's absolute bullshit. No, look, honestly, I was just in the dirt of Afghanistan and I was beyond fatigued. Obviously we train for fatigue. We can go without sleep if that's even possible. But outside the wire, your fight or flight's kicking in pretty hard because you're getting ambushed every day.
Mm.
And on top of that, you're losing mates. And it's not like we lost 2 guys today, we can take the day off. No, bad guys are still out there. And it's funny when there's a bunch of sort of alpha males, not all secure alpha males. If they're not fighting the enemy, they're fighting to each other. So there's a lot of infighting. Like when you've got low energy, you still need energy. So often you take from others. And I didn't know this, but I was a private, so I was getting, my ass kicked from inside the wire and outside the wire as I saw it. Right. So And we never got anything that you'd call sleep, but every now and then you could lay down in the dirt and try and just get horizontal for a bit. And I remember I was in this state of, there's no point. Why am I doing this? I'm going to die. And what difference will that make? You know, a mate of mine got blown up yesterday. What did that change? Nothing. All this dumb shit's still going to be happening. The only thing that's going to change is my family, there's going to be some people home really miss me. So what's the point? It's like I've only got 2 cents worth of energy. And my bottom lip was in the dirt pretty hard. But then it was like this external voice came in and said, Tim, if you've only got 2 cents worth of energy, you better invest that wisely. And I don't know where it came from, but it could have been linked to when they teach us how to shoot. You take a sight picture, you take a deep breath in, let it out slowly, and then take up the first trigger pressure. So what I did when I was horizontal in the dirt of Afghanistan, 2009, and we were in an area that no coalition forces had been to in over 2 years. And special forces we were working with Yanks at the time. And the Yank commander goes, you know, when we get there, it's going to go fucking nuclear. Right. So we are in the thick of this. And I'm laying down. I got 2 cents worth of energy, but I look at my left thumb and I picture a pinhole at the top of it. And I just breathe like I'm breathing air through my thumb, my non-dominant hand. And I breathe into it. It doesn't just sort of relax it and restore it. It starts kind of glowing in my mind's eye. This thing is glowing. And then I breathed into my pointer finger until it became light, my index, my ring. And then I can pull this light through my body. And I noticed whenever I got up from doing that activity, whatever sleep I got, that 2 cents got turned into 8. Now, I didn't understand what was going on, but I saw energy was like money. How you invest it is how you get it back. And so I started my energetic portfolio, you know, just like a shares portfolio, in that point of absolute fatigue. And so 2 cents going to 8, invest the 8 cents, it became 80 cents into $8, until it got to a point where I'm like, oh, I'm feeling pretty good. And I actually started doing extra physical activity like push-ups, sit-ups, deliberately to invest in my body. It's not like we weren't busy enough and it wasn't like we weren't working hard enough, but just taking that time to invest in yourself got me to this point where I'm like, I can be having a good day, but if my team's having a bad day, I'm having a bad day. So I had to say, well, it's one thing to get myself to an energetic level, but it's not enough until my whole team is on, you know, has a raised energetic level. But what could I do? I'm just a private told to do what everyone else does. And what I did have was a friend who owned a coffee shop, and he sent me over a bunch of coffee, right? I had coffee making, really good coffee, right? And I thought, well, I could make people coffee in the mornings or whenever. But this is where I hit up against a very interesting obstacle, Stretch. I knew, because the Special Forces is a very special social dynamic, let us say. So if you do an act of service to a insecure alpha male, then you're below them. You did that to me because you want to serve me and I'm awesome and you're down there. You're trying to please me, so you're below me. And I'm like, fuck that. I am not getting called the brew bitch, because I knew that's what would happen. It's the brew bitch, you know. I'd work too hard to be there, but I had to look at it like this. It doesn't matter if the person loves it, hates it, tells me to fuck off. That person's going to be stronger. And who did I want around me when good times turn bad? Do I want weak, fatigued people, or do I want switched on, powered up, connected individuals? My survivability goes up when they get stronger. So I had to go all the way to Afghanistan, get my ass completely kicked to realize when the person next to me is stronger, guess what? I'm stronger. And I had to drop my ego around that. And it was interesting when I did that, when I'm like, look, you know what? It doesn't care what people say. It's like it became a bridge. So I called it the ego bridge. Second you drop it, you can get anywhere you want to get to, because you're not causing your own suffering. Where most suffering occurs to ourselves, we just don't know it, right? So once I dropped the ego bridge, brought coffee to people, got called the brew bitch, but living so close to people in the field, you got a chance to see the impact of your actions. So I'd go over to a team, drop off some coffee. Thanks, brew bitch. And you'd see him take a sip and then immediately take a second sip because it was really good coffee. I had some really nice caramel and chocolate, syrups to go with it. So it was hitting all the pleasure centers. And it was funny because before I dropped the coffee off, they were arguing amongst themselves. And you drop the coffee off and everything just stopped. You would see these guys stand up, look out to the horizon, take a deep breath, which is interesting, relax their shoulders. And all of a sudden, they're not in the war zone of Afghanistan. They're back home in a coffee shop. And then they start talking and having fun with their team, joking about stuff. And that's where I discovered there's a big difference between servitude and servanthood. So I wanted to be in servanthood, but I had that mixed up with servitude. And what ended up happening, Stretch, was the officers started coming down and having coffee with the soldiers. And in that moment of just once people had a real coffee in their hand and they had that little boost of energy, they started talking like real humans. It wasn't like, I'm an officer, here's the way it is, and this is the way we do things. In those small moments where people felt safe enough to really talk because there was a little bit more energy in the soil, we got more shit done, more resources allocated, more coordinated efforts because of that. And I'm like, I freaking did that. I'm not saying a word, but I created the energetic state where people could actually be who they're really meant to be, and that is connected to each other.
Mate, there are so many gold nuggets in everything you just said, from self-care to dropping the ego, and just connection, like being able to create space for connection in a pretty hostile, stressful, alpha engaged environment. You've managed to create space, allow people to put down their guard and just connect. So that's an awesome story, man. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. Thank you. When did breathwork then take off for you? So you've obviously
back then I didn't know what breathwork was. I'm just like, okay, 2 cents in, 8 cents back. That makes sense. Do that more.
Yeah.
Right. But push the red button. It's like every time you win, get a return on the poker machine. But when I got out of service, I went through my own sort of PTSD loop. And then when I started getting out of that, I started seeing how many other veterans are still stuck in a system that doesn't understand. And it's not a healthcare system. It's a sick care system. The system makes more money when you stay sick. So it's really hard for you to access the things that'll actually heal you at the source of your problem, as opposed to sell you something that you become addicted to that keeps you locked into that particular energetic state. And again, veteran zombie of 6 years here. I'm not saying this as an outside observer. I've been in that crap and I can't get that time back, but as God is my witness, that's not going to happen to anyone else on my watch. And you often only find these voices of true power, which is free, outside of the system. Because so many veterans I know, they say to me, look, I look for help. The help didn't help. In fact, it made it worse. So fuck doing that again. And when you're hurting, looking for answers, you're very vulnerable. So when the doctor says, like he says to me, oh, take all these pills. Okay. So I just want to acknowledge you, Stretch, for bringing this out, because who knows, people listening to this might actually start becoming aware that there's more options out there, that my body can actually heal itself. I just need to tap into the power that is in there and know that I can heal me. So breath work for me became real when I was out of the war zone in Afghanistan, but I was actually in a worse war zone called divorce. Lost all my money, access to kids, house, home. All I had was the dog, an old car, and I was sleeping on the couch of my parents' place. And I'm in my 40s. And do you think I was sleeping well? Fuck no, right? The nighttime is when the demons came. And this is what I realized. And this is again, the void drives the value. I was blessed to go through that experience. And you might be confused when I say blessed, but let me just say this, and this is what I say to veterans, and I'll say it to people listening. You might not think you're special, but I bet everything I got that you've been through some shit. And it's our job as men to turn that shit into fertilizer. And that might take you a week, a month, a decade, but that's the amount of time we can save other people staying in the shit. Because the thing that you don't want to touch, the stinkiest shit, makes the best fertilizer. It's actually there to help every part of your life flourish. So when I said I was blessed to lose everything that I cared about and be in that place where it was just me, the opposition, and I was either going to end myself or find a way forward. And this is the irony here. I was fully aware of breath work, but when you're in the deepest shit, let me just say your mind's like a garden. Whatever you water stretch grows. And for years, I was watering the weeds of stress without knowing it. And those stress weeds are interesting. They'll not just start taking over the garden where you start wanting to hear bad news, thinking about things that piss you off, listening to mainstream media and all the terrible things that are happening and feeding those stress weeds. It gets to a point where eyeballs pop out of those stress weeds and they become sentient. They become very aware of the things that you do that feed them. They become super aware of the things that you do that starve them. And do you think they are at all interested in you doing the things that starve them? If do you think they would allow you to kick them out of the garden by doing empowering things? Of course not, because they're fighting for their survival. So if you've ever, and I'll give you a small example of this. Before you do exercise, before you go to the gym, put your shoes on, there's always a part of you going, oh, I don't want to do this. Let's do this later. Okay, so that's the disempowered parts of you aware that they're about to be kicked out. And they're fighting for their survival. So they will do every little trick. Oh, look, let's just do this distraction. Let's just look at our phone a bit longer. Let's just put it off till later, because they know you're about to kick it out. Because once you actually become empowered, they're gone. And so in that state, 2 a.m., the stress weeds were loving it. I knew I was supposed to breathe, but you think I could? Fuck no. And so I got up. I was going to hit the bottle, the pills, self-harm, but it was this kind of villain hero moment, I suppose. I looked at my left thumb. And it's funny, I didn't see this until now, but it was my left thumb in Afghanistan that I was breathing into. I don't know why I did this. It could have just been like old programming. I looked at my left thumb at 2 a.m. in the dark. I said, Tim, you can take one breath. Just take one fucking breath. And I drove it into my chest like, oh my gosh, that works. Take two. And I drove 2 fingers into my chest. This is working. This is working. Take three. And every breath was the breath of my life. And I get to 5, now get to 10, get to 10. And then somewhere between 14 and 25 breaths, I alkalized my neural pathways, kicked those stress weeds out. And the rest of my brain was like, thank fuck you kicked them out. Keep doing it. This is working. You are going to live if you do this. So it was all alone, 2 a.m., sleeping on the couch with my parents, having lost money, house, home, regular access to kids, where I realized breath work works.
Great story, mate. I really, really appreciate you for sharing that as well. There's just so much wealth of knowledge and wisdom that's come from that experience. And like you said, sometimes we have to hit that rock bottom to be able to climb out of that hole and to be able to gain that wisdom and gain that knowledge. You said before that, 95% of our life could be on autopilot and we just go in that path. And the 5% that is the challenge, the 5% that we could go on a different path, it's the harder path. But if we want growth, and your analogy all along about the soil, if we want growth, we have to step into the uncomfortable. We have to break out of autopilot. And it sounds like breath work has been a tool that's allowed you to break out of that autopilot from the life you've had of growing up and being a fighter and, being in the military and serving and all that sort of stuff. Pretty high stress, pretty go all the time, a lot of doing, a lot of physical, but to be able to create that space to break free of that mustn't have been an easy journey. So full credit to you for being able to go on that, man.
Well, it certainly doesn't help that I was made men are made to suffer, endure, and die for a cause.
Mm.
We are like that sacrificial anode on the outboard motor. You know, like the zinc plate, it depreciates so the rest of the the motor can function in an environment that would otherwise rot it. And that's we're built for it. We got the muscle mass, we got the tenacity. But my curse was I was probably the toughest dude I knew. So I had to be crushed beyond recognition to then go, oh, maybe I could do something better than just take the hits every day, and pat myself on the back that I got through another day enduring all this pain, and I'm gonna reward myself. And I used to have to drink half a carton of grog before I spoke to my then wife. I call her my then wife, not my ex-wife, because I stand for a positive future. And I noticed that if I said ex-wife out loud, there was a whole lot of negative charge to that. So I say that as a then wife because it's a statement for myself, but it's also a statement for others, and because I stand for their positive relationship as well.
Mm. Yeah. And I can connect with that too. And I think, a lot of guys probably do connect with that. We set ourselves these bars, whether it's at work, whether it's at the gym, whatever it is, we're chasing these goals because they give us this sense of achievement, this a sense of accomplishment. But in reality, what are we hiding from? What's that mask that we're putting on? What are we not looking at internally? Maybe our relationship with ourselves. What are we avoiding? We're ticking these boxes, whether it's even addiction, going to porn, going to alcohol, going to drugs. That's what is that feeling, and what's missing from our life. And it sounds like,
Well,
you've
that's a
sort
good,
of,
no, perfect question. Perfect question, because ultimately we want to feel connected. And the blockages that we just take for granted and never look at, we then try and find a way around those blockages. Oh, I need to be an Australian champion in fighting so I can get around the blockage of me not really loving myself, having a really honorable relationship with myself. Oh, I'm gonna join the special forces so no one's gonna actually look past the beret and see that there's someone who just has to prove his self-worth. And I mean, my vision for everybody is to see your energy as like money, in the way that how you invest it is how you get it back. And my vision for everybody is to be an energetic millionaire. I'll say that again, energetic millionaire, because from that position of strength, life occurs very differently going down the street with $1 million in their back pocket as opposed to going down the street with 2 cents. And I'll share with you now, pretty tough dude. I hold a grudge. And I've been that guy. I only had $1, right? And someone took 50 cents. 50 bloody cents, right? But because I only had $1, that was a massive withdrawal. And I tried to chase that 50 cents back for years with all sorts of revenge plans. I'm going to fuck this guy up. But when you become an energetic millionaire and you see the source of your own power, you can't stop people taking from you, but it's a very different experience when you're at $10 million and they take 50 cents. Stay there, play with it, mate. You've just missed out on the rest of my life. And I chased that 50 cents and I completely forgot my own sovereign power of making another $1 million the next day. And that's when I realized I can't stop people taking from me, but they can't stop me becoming a millionaire the next day. And when you keep cycling in that energetic loop, things just stop occurring the way they occur, because a lot of the problems we have these days, they're low energy problems, and we're coming at them with low energy solutions. And you're only going to perpetuate it. You're only going to, when you're in a low energy state, when you're seeing lots of faults and you're drawn to people that point out faults. And in Australian culture, I've observed that we tend to bond by agreeing with each other. So it can be a really shitty day and someone you may or may not know walks past, you go, oh, lovely day. Go, yeah, lovely day. And then someone else will walk past, oh, terrible day. Yeah, terrible day, because I want to get close to you. So therefore I'm going to agree with you. But if you disagree with somebody in Australia, especially, it's like you're saying, no, I don't want to hug you. Don't touch me. So there's sort of social programming we don't even know is there to agree with the idea that I'm right to revenge that fucker that took from me, as opposed to, you know what, there is a better way to do this. See that as what it was. It took energy from you. And if it's energy you want, you're not going to get it from someone who doesn't have any. You're going to get it by investing in you. And I actually put a spreadsheet out. So there was a guy I was literally willing to go to jail for. And I got a certain skill set. No man on earth could have stopped me. But what I did this bar graph where, okay, that guy was in a position of power and he may have abused it, and that took from me. But his power, his potential is relative to how many victims he can find. So if this is the bar graph of how powerful someone is, their potential, he's stuck here because his power is relative to how many victims. Okay. And no one really sticks around for that. So they're always rotating through victims. But I'm down here at this point, and if I try and go after that person, I can't get back what I was taken, and I'll probably end up like that person. But if I invest in myself and keep on investing in myself and keep on investing in myself, my potential isn't capped like his is. I have uncapped potential if I keep investing in me, investing in me, investing in me. And there's a great biblical saying, Lord, make my enemies dust beneath my feet. And what does that mean? Ground them up into dirt? No. Like you and I, at any given time, we've probably got dust in our feet, but we don't know it's there. It's so small, it's off our radar. That's the goal in revenge. Or if I'm talking to high school students, I'll often have a little Venus flytrap, and they're actually really small, these Venus flytraps. And I say to the high school students, does this scare you? And they're like, nah. I'm like, but if you're a fly, you'd be terrified of this thing. But if that fly had our unique human ability of investing in ourselves, strengthening ourselves, growing ourselves, that fly could turn into a bird. The bird could turn into a cat. The cat could turn into a lion. Now imagine that lion walking past that Venus flytrap. The need for revenge would be replaced with humor. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I ever took that thing seriously. You know, how little was I back then? And that's how we need to start seeing any perpetrator, anyone that's taken from you. You are a Venus flytrap in the making. And thank you for the prompt, because I never would have started my progression of growth until you bless me with showing me how not to do it, how not to live life.
Yeah, exactly, mate. I think revenge is something that can just pull us down. And like you said, it's that negative. We're always focusing on the negative, and that can be a spiral that takes us deeper and deeper. So to be able to switch off from that and go in the opposite direction and see that as maybe as a weakness, not as a strength, is sound advice. I want to go back because you're talking about being on the couch of your parents. You've hit rock bottom, and then you've really sort of started to experience this breath and this breath work. How has that evolved from you since that? How has that evolved for you since then? Since that point, what journey have you been on with the breath?
So what I discovered, Stretch, was that breathing is easy, but doing it consciously is kind of hard because it's our oldest habit, right? So what I did was I created little recordings, just my own stupid voice going, Tim, breathe in to a certain cadence. You breathe a certain way, you elicit a certain response from your body. But you do need to be coached in that space. Otherwise, it's easy to lose yourself. So you need that external voice. I used to make these little recordings, and military saying, if it's stupid and it works, it's not stupid. And so I used to play these recordings, and I used to breathe a certain way, and I used to go to sleep. And it was my best friend at 2 a.m. when the demons decided to turn up, right? Hit that button. And then I started making them, to go to sleep, how about we make them to get out of bed as well? And I started making these recordings. I'm like, this is really working. Oh my gosh, my bed is being turned into a cloud with my breath going to sleep, and it's turned into a trampoline with my breath in the morning. So I started just sharing it with friends, and they were getting great results. And I was blessed to work in a highly therapy resistant group of people called veterans. And a lot of people don't work with veterans because they'll tell you to F off, even if they like you. So they're quite abrasive, quite resistant. But this breath work worked. It really, really worked. And so I thought, well, if you actually find something that actually works, then how do you make it available as possible? because everything I do, Stretch, I'm military. I love my acronyms. 3 Ps. Okay, I got a P test, right? Everything I do has got to be positive. It's got to be powerful. But the third P is the most important. Permanency. If we say we care about people, we've got to care about them the next day, the next week, the next decade. And permanency to what you're doing means you have to put structures in place for them to access that power and positivity whenever they want. So I actually withdrew myself from public life about 2 or 3 years ago. I'd just done a workshop at Enoggera Army Base here in Brisbane, and this lieutenant colonel who never attended sent me this email, and he said, "Look, my corporals and sergeants are coming up to me, and they're saying that was the best workshop ever, and they've had the first good night's sleep in up to 5 years." Right? And he thought it was amazing. After one session, it fixed it. And I'm like, that's terrible. You know how much damage can be caused in 5 years of bad sleep? And how easy was it to fix it? But then he said something that made me drop out of public life. He said, "Tim, it was good when you're there, but what have you got when you're not there?" I'm like, oh shit, I just failed my P test. I'm not permanent. Okay. So years later and tens of thousands of dollars, I've created something that worked for me in a very sort of rudimentary form. I've created an easy, accessible product that all you got to do is tell it when you want to sleep, when you want to wake up, and then we take care of the rest because everyone's trying to wring the life out of daytime stuff, work hard or whatever. But if you can be guided into sleep with breath and then out of sleep with breath, some pretty powerful things happen. The soil from which you grow becomes so much more energized. And it's funny, if you want everything in your life to improve, everyone's working on the things in their life. I'm like, no, work on your sleep quality. Because if you want to destroy someone, destroy their sleep. We used to do this in the special forces, knew nothing of the science of sleep, but we knew if we could deny the enemy sleep for 3 nights, it would fuck them up better than a bullet. You know, but you just become this walking zombie. And in humans, we can get by, but we're a bit like that phone that never gets put on charge. It goes down into power saver mode. So there's all these functions the phone can do, but at 1%, 2%, you know, you can see a dimly lit screen. You might be able to make a phone call and it might cut out halfway through, but that's what most humans are in. And so and this is where I was talking about low energy problems won't be solved with low energy solutions. Get that person back to their charge point, and then all of a sudden, all these other things come online. And that's, again, would tie into the joy of what I do, because you literally, same person, or two completely different people in this world, and they're both you and me. There's the you and me on power saver mode, which most people are, and it makes sense, and life is painful, so I should drink half a carton of grog before I speak to someone I care about. Or I spend a third of my day investing in me, connecting myself to the charge point, and then all my systems come online, and I can function fully like an energetic millionaire. And I can be both people. I've been both people. So I'm not proclaiming, you know, this from the soapbox. I know that if I don't copy, bad day, I'm a freaking asshole. Because I'm in a shitty mood. I need energy. I can't make it myself. So, and I didn't even know I'm doing it. I'm just, you know, that person that walks in the room and they're an energy vampire.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And being aware that you can be two completely different people, understanding that, you start understanding just how important it is to be the absolute boss of your own sleep.
Yeah, exactly. I know that sleep's so important to me, and I've been through, you know, periods of my life where sleep has been tough due to stress or due to underlying health issues. And yeah, you just know that when you're just not turning up as the best version of yourself when you're not sleeping. But in our society today, you know, it's push, push, go, go. You know, I'll sleep when I'm dead. That
They brag
attitude.
about it. It's not
Yeah,
socially
and
acceptable. It's socially encouraged. I only
yeah,
had 3 hours sleep last night. I had another coffee. I'm fine. They brag about it. I'm like, are you serious? I mean, just on a science, if I get technical here, like, and I'll talk about it very plainly, right? If we eat, we got to shit, right? Every part of our body creates energy, creates waste. Our brain, pretty important part of us, right? It produces energy, it consumes food, but it's also got to shit. And when you get more than 6 hours of quality sleep, your spinal fluid goes into your brain and pulls the shit out of your brain, allows it to pull that crap out. So if you wake up and you're feeling crappy, there's a reason. If that crappy feeling is following you around for the day, brain fog, irritability, short attention span, it's because we literally have excrement in our brain. And that leads to damage over time. And until I never got the gravity of this until I currently care for my father who's got Alzheimer's. And, Stretch, if you, me, or anyone listening hurts their hand, it's just you and me with a taped up hand. We're still functioning, right? But if you, me, or anyone listening damages their brain, that which we are is no longer there. And to see that in someone you care about makes you realize just how important your own brain is. And a shout out to people that are getting less than 6 hours sleep regularly. This is something that you're probably getting by now and it seems normal. But the impact, the longer you live, the more apparent it's going to be. And dementia, Alzheimer's is a huge killer in Australia.
It's that death by paper cuts, isn't it? One little paper cut's not going to kill you, but it's just the accumulation of that over time, again and again and again, that's having huge impacts on our mental health. The dementia and Alzheimer's. But it's also like we think about, if I'm not showing up as the best person myself, if I'm not sleeping, what's that doing to my relationships? How am I showing up for my kids, for my partner, for my mates, for my colleagues? And like you say, we might think we can push through and that we're battling and that it's a badge of honor somehow by not getting sleep. But the big picture is just scary and it's not worth it in the long run. So I think now might be a good opportunity for us, Tim, to experience some breath work. You've talked about the energy. Some of our listeners today might be feeling a little bit flat right now. Maybe they just need a little bit of a boost, or we can step into this.
I would love to give you I'll show you how to do an instant. I'll show you my party trick, which is total relaxation or energization. Just made that word up in 3 breaths. Okay.
Let's do it.
And if you can remember this, and me and Stretch going blah 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 doesn't are just words, but if you can take these actions with you, you'll be able to be in conscious control of your energy systems. But also, if you come across anyone you care about that is dysregulated and needs to reduce stress, who knows, you might know someone that needs to reduce stress one day. This technique will work. And the reason why breath work is so powerful is your breath outranks your thinking mind. So before we were, as humans, before we were sentient, before we had this sentient mind bolted on, putting paintings on rock walls, as creatures, we were breathing. And that deep ancient wiring outranks the thinking mind. Now, I used to use that in combat. I used to be known as the guy that could beat people that had a higher skill level than me, but I just worked out the fact that the breath outranked their thinking mind. They might be a black belt in their mind, but if you could take out their breath, they become white belts. So I never beat a black belt. I just knew how to reduce them to a white belt by attacking their breath. And I just want to presence people. This isn't just to feel good. There is a definite performance edge to this. So at 30, when they said I was too old to join the Special Forces, I was a free diver of many years. So I had control of my diaphragm. And that's a really large muscle group that sits around your stomach and thoracic area. And just a fun fact, and this is what I tell all my professional athletes, and it surprises me how many professional athletes don't know how to breathe properly. Okay. And here's a fun fact that you can take away. It'll change the rest of your life. And this is what allowed me as a 30-year-old to outstrip 18, 20-year-olds. This is real-time performance. This isn't woo-woo. The body has a ranking structure for blood. There's parts of your body that is wired to be more important than others. So the brain's pretty important, right? So if it doesn't get enough blood, it'll send a signal to the rest of your body going, hey, I'm more important than the rest of you guys. I'm getting the blood. And it'll knock you out, put you horizontal so it gets the blood, right? Another important function we have is breathing. So when your diaphragm gets fatigued, it sends a signal out to the rest of your body, hey, I'm more important than you guys. I'm taking the blood. Unlike your brain, this is a massive muscle group. You ever seen skirt steak? Okay. Big muscle group. And it can take up to 1/3 of your total blood volume. So there I was. They called me Old Man Tomo. And with guys younger, fitter, faster, stronger than me, but they didn't have a conditioned diaphragm. I did. So when things got hard and they started breathing heavy, their blood from their superior arms and legs went into their diaphragm. Meanwhile, Old Man Tomo never stopped because I had all my blood where it was supposed to be. My arms and legs weren't as strong as theirs, but I had more blood in them because my diaphragm didn't take away from the working parts of me. So do you see how that works? And I remember working it out with a rugby team that if you've got control of your diaphragm and you're breathing half a liter of air more than the other team, every breath cycle, a professional athlete does 50 cycles of breath per minute. So over a game, we worked out there was 50,000 liters of air more in one team than the other. And if there was 3 minutes to go, where would you put the money on? The one that had 50,000 liters more air in the tank, or the one that didn't know how to access all that? So I'm just saying this to just presence people to the power they have, because ignorance of this won't protect you when you're really wanting to discover what your body can and can't do. Now, the technique I'm going to show you, it is simple, it is breathing, but because it's a new habit, I just have to invite you to consider the possibility that we need to give permission to ourselves for our breath to do everything it's supposed to do. So I just asked some questions of people, 3 simple questions to give them permission to allow them to feel the fullness of their own breath. And I'm going to ask you this, Stretch, but I invite everyone who wants to find out how awesome their own lungs are. You're going to discover this. It's not a set of lungs we were given. It's a medicine cabinet with a lot of different shelves. You breathe a certain way, you elicit a certain medicine. And your ignorance of your own medicine means you look outside of yourself for this medicine. So I'm just saying that this is super important. And it's super important you give your breath permission, because we have this as the oldest habit, and we're going to do something new. So the 3 breaths are going to be amazing, but it's going to be new. So Stretch and the people listening, the first question is, do you give your breath full permission to nourish every single part of your physical body?
Yep, certainly.
Awesome. That was simple, right? I was drumming it up like it was something hard. Great. Now, so Stretch, do you give permission to your own breath to fully nourish your conscious thinking mind?
Yep, let's do it.
Awesome. Love it. Okay. Last one, Stretch, do you give permission to your very own breath to fully nourish and energize your unconscious mind?
Yep, let's do it.
I love it. All right. So all we're going to do is breathe in and out. Okay. If you did that, that was what we call a conscious breath. You're aware of your inhale, you're aware of your exhale, and that is your first step towards empowerment. Because if you're not aware of your inhale and exhale, mental health isn't a mental problem. It's a physical disconnect problem. When I'm so focused out there, I've disconnected from my body and I don't even know I'm breathing. I start going, ah, ah, ah. Okay. And as mammals, we're quite wired to how people breathe around us without us knowing. You go to a public place, you start going, ah, ah, ah. You look how many people freak out. Okay. This is part of our deep ancient wiring. So being conscious breathing, that's the first step. So this time when we breathe in, I just want you to breathe in, and where you normally stop, I just want you to breathe in more. Okay. So let's start with an exhale. Blow it out. I invite you to blow it out, shake it out. Blow it out, shake it out. Out, blow it out, shake it out. Shake your shoulders. Out, 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 out. Then just start breathing in. Breathe in, then breathe in more. Give it a bit of a shake, and then let it out. Good breath, Stretch. And just let that energy go to where it's supposed to go. This is your energy, your sovereign energy, and it's got an intelligence all of its own. So if it says, oh, I need to go to your neck, relax your neck. If it wants you to yawn, sometimes it makes you feel tired. Sometimes it makes you feel energized. But whatever it is, we've given it permission to nourish that which it needs to and go to where it needs to go. Okay. So you probably noticed when you breathed in again and again, you breathed into more up here, like the top third opened up a bit more.
Yep.
So for the sake of giving that a name, Stretch, and you did really well, you're dropping into this well. we're going to call this your primary inhale, where you breathe in and out normally. But when you breathe in more, we're going to call this your secondary inhale. Now, again, what I love about my job is I show people amazing things about their bodies that they never knew they had. So this time, Stretch, we're going to blow it out. But when we breathe in, when it comes to the secondary, the awesome thing is, so this time we're going to blow out, we're going to breathe into the primary. And when it comes to the secondary, all I want you to do is raise your eyebrows and kind of look up. Okay. And just notice the impact raising your eyebrows and looking up has on your secondary inhale. So you cool with that?
Yep, let's do it.
So we're going to exhale, blow it out, shake it out, 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 out. You'd be surprised how much you can go out. In when you're ready. And then raise your eyebrows, look up, raise your eyebrows, really look up, raise, raise, raise. Now hold it and give it a bit of a wriggle. Wriggle your shoulders, and then let it out with a nice big sigh. Let it do what it does. We just get out of the way of it. It's your sovereign energy. Sometimes people feel peaceful. Sometimes they feel still. Sometimes they feel powerful. But whatever it is, this is your energy. Now, did you notice when you raise your eyebrows, it kind of opens you up a bit more? You could get more air in.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Now, another fun thing we have for this secondary inhale are power buttons in our 2 fingers and thumbs. So when we push down on our thumb with our 2 fingers, like push down really hard, like you're trying to pinch something, that boosts your secondary inhale. So we're going to do the same thing again, but this time when it comes to the secondary inhale, we're going to raise our eyebrows and we're going to hit those turbo buttons as we look up. Cool, cool?
Yep, gotcha.
So let's blow it. Have your turbo buttons ready. I'm always I just rub get them ready. Rub your thumb into your 2 fingers, blow it out, shake it out, blow it out, shake it out, 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 out. You'd be surprised how much you blow out. Then when you're ready, breathing in, hit your power buttons, raise your eyebrows, open, 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 power up, power up. Now hold it and just wriggle your spine, wriggle your shoulders, wriggle, 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 wriggle. And if you feels right, let out a really big sigh. Let it in, let it in. Feel where it needs to go to. Men, we like doing things. We don't often like receiving, but when it comes to your own power, we are so freaking powerful. All we have to do is get out of the way of it. This is an active receivership, which is kind of hard because we kind of think we're getting vulnerable. But if we can be the ones filling up our cup continually, we're going to start overflowing. Oh man, it's so easy to be generous now because I can just keep filling this cup up, you know? And that was just one breath, right? If you and I worked for an hour together, Stretch, I could take you to places that words could not describe.
Yeah.
This is what our breath can do. And this is why I do about 2 hours of breath work a day, because if you could do something that makes you feel fucking amazing, makes you younger, stronger, boosts every single function in your body, allows me to throw down with my 20-year-old son. And conversely, if we don't breathe, every organ, every system dies early. Because our breath is our gas exchange. So when I was walking my dogs and daughter the other day, and I was trying to explain the importance of breath, and I said, "Well, look, you see that big tree? You see how it looks like a set of lungs? Imagine if that tree woke up one day and said, I'm only going to put a third of my leaves in the sun today. What do you think would happen to that tree? Well, it would slowly die, right? And because the leaves are the gas exchange, that's the energy." Right. And our lungs are our leaves. They're our gas exchange. That's our energy. So how well we live, how strong we are, how long we live is relative to how many leaves we have in the sun. This is our gas exchange. And this is no accident. Our lungs look like trees, right? So every time you see a tree, that is the creator saying, take a deep breath. Take a deep breath.
Tim, thank you very much for sharing that with us. And I definitely felt like after that first breath of raising the eyebrows, looking up, there was definitely energy passing through my body as I did that. So
what I'm going to include, and I hate to cut you off, but that's only like half of the technique. So that's the breath of possibility. and there's the breath of peace, which they work in together. I'll send you a link that your listeners can access, because if you can really tap into this. So what happens is you master this little thing, and then when you're out in public, if you feel something's pissing you off, something's taking your energy, pinch your fingers together. And I do this discreetly in public. It's not like I'm in public. I'm just discreetly going, straightening up, opening up, pushing it around the place, and then all of a sudden I've got my energy back. I'm a millionaire again. And people ask me how often I should breathe, and I'm like, well, when I was on pills, I didn't just have pills in the medicine cabinet, had them by my bed, in my car, in my wallet, in my pockets of my jackets, because I couldn't self-regulate, and I thought pills were the way to do it. And now, when there's crap in my head and I know I'm supposed to breathe, I've programmed myself to hit those power buttons, and because it's like we need that little bit of extra energy to override that negative shit that we're used to thinking of. Okay, so to practice this as much as you can, so it becomes like second nature. So instead of raising the finger and wanting to punch some guy, you can breathe, put back in, and negotiate from a position of strength. And so it's the breath of peace and possibility, and master it yourself, and you'll be surprised how quickly it works with others as well. Because like I said, breath outranks thoughts. And if you can access the breath and help others do the same, you can have a team around you that's super powerful. Even if you don't like them, it's in your best interest to have strong and empowered people around you. Because what's the alternative? Disempowered, pissed off people. That's a great world to live in. So I'll give you the link. I encourage people to have a good look and do a deeper dive. My only request is you just do it in a safe place. Try not to do it when you're driving or cutting up carrots. Do it in a place that you're not going to do yourself or anyone else any dramas. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome, mate. I'll attach the link in the show notes below. Tim, while we're here and we're talking about that, where can people find out more about what you do?
Sure. Look, I have the regular social junk mail. Okay. Breathwork in bed across all platforms. If I'm being honest, and if I'm a healer, I don't want people putting more blue light through their eyeballs. But it's there as a flag that's raised in that space. So Breathwork in Bed is across all the socials. But if anyone could take something away, I want to leave you with a gift. Imagine for 28 days sleeping amazingly. What would life be like for 28 days sleeping awesome? And conversely, what would a week be like sleeping terribly, right? There's quite a game here to play. So I want to gift everybody listening today 28 days of sleep. So take the time, go pull out your phone, smartphone, Android, doesn't matter, and just put in 3 words: breathwork in bed. It's a sage looking icon, and download it.
Excellent, Tim. I really like that. And thank you. Very grateful of you to throw out that app and to share, your knowledge and your wisdom.
Oh.
Tim, thanks for sharing your story and wisdom. Guys, if this episode hit home for you, I'd love you to take the next step by completing the Midlife Assessment Scorecard. It's a free tool we created to help men in midlife see exactly where they're thriving and where they're struggling in health, career, relationships, freedom, and purpose. You'll get a personalized score and practical insights to move forward. Click the link in the show notes to take the Midlife Assessment Scorecard. It'll take you less than 5 minutes. It might just be the wake-up call you need. Until next time, keep breathing, keep moving, and keep showing up for yourself.